Yo, what's up? Today I'll be explaining about conditional errors inside of Wized. So let's just get straight into this. So let me first explain my setup, right? So here you have a user account form. Essentially, you can change your personal info like your first and last name, your user avatar, your password, and essentially those things that I mentioned, those three things, have their own separate requests. Now you can merge all of this into one single request, but I chose to essentially separate all three of them so that it's a bit easier. The function stack in PHP is a bit easier, or in Xano, should I say, is a bit easier. So let me go through the setup, right? Now, this was the action that I set for the user form or the user account form. Now, each of those requests that I mentioned earlier, those will only execute under a very specific condition. Now, if that condition isn't met, then it will not request or it will not execute the request. So for example, here I have one of the requests is user update user account, which essentially updates your first name and your last name. So if I change this to um, Akbar double R, save changes. Now it's double R. All of a sudden, you see my name is now changed. And if I even look at Xano, for example, let me just go to my Xano account and show you guys. So if I see the database, uh, user database here, my name is now changed. The last name is double R. It's not just a single R. It's now double R. So I think that's how it should happen. Now, this is the particular condition. Now I know it might look intimidating, but essentially it's just me defining what my variables are. So essentially, one of my variables is user info, which is a computed variable. We can do a video later on in the future, but essentially, what computed variables are, it will essentially calculate your variable when a dependency is changed. So, for example, your variable value is based on a request. When that request is now re-executed, it will automatically change the variable value to that new result from the request. Now, what I did was here on submit, it had to fulfill this condition. The condition being that this field here cannot be equals to the same value that's already there. Essentially, if my name is Muhammad, and then I change and I try to save it as Muhammad as well with no changes in capitalization or spacings or anything like that, then what it will do, it will not allow me to perform the request. However, if I change the value and I try to save changes, it will now allow me to perform the request. So that's essentially the premise of this whole setup. Now, the issue I encountered was that when I updated the user avatar, so the user avatar is essentially just an input of images. So, for example, here you can say in the input fields under PFP upload, which is profile picture upload, you can see there's nothing here. There's literally just an empty object. But if I change this to maybe this, you can see that this whole thing with the square brackets, which is an array, it now appears out of nowhere. And essentially, this means that there is currently an image inside of um, the input, even though it will return as a object with nothing in it. You can't see it, but it's essentially there. You just can't see it. So that's essentially the explanation. Now, back to our initial issue, the conditional issue that I encountered was that I essentially before this specific condition, what I did. So before I do that, let me just run this request, and then you can see that this is true, which means that there is an image here. However, if I try to reload the page and then I try to run this, it returns to false because there is no image that is inside of the input, right? So the issue I encountered was that before I settled on this specific condition, what I did was I used an if-else statement, which essentially looks something like this. If okay, let me just quickly upload something so I can okay, so if PVP upload, or there is a value inside of that particular field, then curly brackets, which essentially is just then I want to execute this request. I want to return it as true. So what I did was what the fuck? All right, what I did was I did this, right? Return true. This is what I did. And then if there isn't, or else, I want to now return it again, but this time I want to return it as false. Now if I try to run this, it returns true because there is an image now, right? And if I reload, I run it again, it returns false. But here, for example, if I click this button, it will say please wait. So the reason it says please wait because I also set the buttons, the input value of the button, so that it will set the text here to save changes if there is no request being currently being requested. And it will return please wait if there is a request being requested, meaning that if there is no request being requested or being executed, then it will not change this input value. However, if I click this, it says please wait, please wait. And if you see here under one of the requests, which is user avatar, it has requested for some reason. Now this is why I was like going crazy. I was like, what the fuck is going on here? Now, as it turns out, the condition that I returned here, there is an issue, and I'm not sure if you're a seasoned developer, you can tell. But for those of you who don't know what's the issue here, as it turns out, the issue was that I returned this as a string and not as a boolean. What a boolean is essentially a binary result. A binary result meaning that it will either return 0 or 1, or true or false, essentially. So, for example, if I return it as true, and then I do this, which is dot comma, which is essentially a me saying that return it as this, like execute this return. And if I do this as false, like this, it will now return the same thing. However, if I click this, you can see me, nothing happens. And even the request here, the request here is not being requested. So essentially, it boils down to the thing that I'm returning. At first, I returned it as a string, and the correct way to do it is returning it as a boolean. And I think there's a lot of people that still make this mistake. Even though in Wiz it returns the same thing, false and true, but the way you return it, what type of data you return it as a string or as a boolean, that really matters. And the final, so obviously initially this is the code I came up with, right? But then I changed it into this specific condition. Now in this specific condition, it essentially means that if there is no input, there's no object inside of the input, or the input value is essentially null, which essentially means there's nothing inside of it, is not equals to true, meaning that there is an image inside of it, then it will return true as a boolean. As you can see, it returns false because there is no input inside of this conditional statement. However, if I do upload something here, for example, this image, and then it will now return true. And this button will now be able, you'll now be able to submit this updated profile picture. So yeah, I think it's a quite unique issue that I encountered, and it's a small issue, but that goes to show that even small little mistakes, something as small as a quote unquote sign, can literally ruin or mess with the flow of your requests or actions. So yeah, this is a quite relatively short tutorial or discovery, should I say. And yeah, I hope you have a wonderful time coding in Wized, or a wonderful time developing applications, whatever the case may be. But yeah, I hope this can be of value to you, especially if you're debugging something and you're really stressed out of your mind. One thing you can also do is like ask ChatGPT, why is this why is this function not working? For example, I'll actually demonstrate this real quick. I'll copy the old conditional statement inside of ChatGPT. I'll open it up. Why is my conditional logic not working? I'll just ask that to ChatGPT, and then you just send this. And then here. Okay, in this case, this is a bit different than what the issue actually is. I think you have to give a bit of context as well. For me personally, I already did this. So essentially, I was discovering why the heck my shit wasn't working earlier. This is the prompt I gave. I gave a bit of context. I gave the specific code that I was running, and then the revised code that I came up with, and then it actually explained it perfectly. It said that the issue lies in the data that I'm returning. In this case, I returned it as a string, as you can see, and it should return it as a boolean as opposed to a string, as you can see here. Run the request, do not run the request. This is the basic logic of it. And also, you might be wondering, why is it 0? Well, if you have multiple images, you can use also a iterator variable or index variable, depending on how you want to call it. But essentially, the reason why I only have 0, because I'm literally just uploading one image. Sorry, I'm not uploading multiple images. The reason why it says I here is because it's an index variable or a iterator variable to let the input know that there is, for example, multiple uploads at the same time, or those kind of things. So yeah, I hope this video can give you some sort of clarity, and I'll see you guys in the next discovery. Ciao.